We're very pleased to be joined tonight by two presenters, former Pierce County Sheriff Paul Pastor and current Pierce County Prosecuting Attorney Mary Robnett. So thank you to our guests. You each have about a half hour to present to our commission, and that includes questions. The commissioners have generally had a few questions, so we have Sheriff Pastor first on our agenda, so we'll let him go first. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very kindly for having me this evening.
Sorry. Sheriff,
Do we have microphones or anything?
Sorry.
These aren't working? Just for show.
Just for sure.
Okay.
It's a
I feel
problem.
like I should be doing some Tony Bennett numbers with this. I'll spare you that. Going to take you back in history a little bit, quite a ways back. Fall of 1787 in Philadelphia, 17th of September, 1787, just outside the Pennsylvania State House, later to be called Independence Hall. Benjamin Franklin and the people who were writing the Constitution for the United States of America, the first Constitution, were exiting the hall. Benjamin Franklin was confronted by a lady named Elizabeth Powell, who was both curious and a little courageous and brave, and walked up and said, "Dr. Franklin, what do we have? Do we have a monarchy or a republic?" And the reply that Franklin gave was, "Madam, we have a republic, if you can keep it." And the "if you can keep it" part is going to occupy some of my comments today. As I see your efforts, you are seeking to find ways to keep and fine-tune the republic aspects, the democratic republic aspects, small d, of this county. I've been asked to make some observations based on some experience. As you know, I've had the opportunity, the privilege, and the honor of serving as your sheriff. I served as your sheriff for 8 years as an appointed official. I served as your sheriff for 3 four-year terms as an elected official. It's only one other person in the state who can say that they have had this distinction, and his name is Dave Reichert. And you can tell I'm not Dave Reichert because my hair is just a little different from his. Otherwise, we're mistaken for one another all the time. And it gets to be, oh, come on. It gets to be, actually, he's in on that joke, so you might want to use that too. It turns out that we both favor the idea of an elected sheriff. There are lots of things I agree with former Sheriff Reichert, former Representative Reichert about. There are things we disagree about, but we agree with regard to that. Okay. We have a republic in America, but it's not in the best shape it could be in. It's not in the best shape, pardon me, at the federal level or at the state level. Often there's, I think, too much vigorous head nodding, universal head nodding at both levels. To keep it on course, to make course corrections, and not simply to take something that's bestowed on us from the 1700s, we have work to do. We have responsibilities. A republic, if you can keep it, there's labor involved. There's investment involved. There's time and talent and treasure involved. Too often, when confronted by the prospect of having to listen and sort out arguments and consider what should be done and balance advantages and disadvantages of a particular approach, we sort of switch off. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of things to consider. Our response has been maybe like a bored teenage telephone addict or cell phone addict. we hear the arguments and we go, whatever, leave me alone. I got my life to move in on. I've got my life to deal with. Part of our life to deal with is the republic that we have. Part of the life to deal with is what our government is doing. Part of our life to deal with is to be not a couch potato citizen, but an aerobic citizen. So the whatever response isn't that useful. Or else sometimes we just focus on one or two issues and we spend hours and days and months on the internet arguing about that and threatening death to anybody who disagrees with us or whatever. Come on, we can be better than either approach to that. We have examples of a sheriff that we have reason to be ashamed of. His name was George Janovich.
Yes.
If you have been here for a while, you know that name.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Oh,
I
yeah.
came to the county after Mr. Janovich, after things had been cleaned up, after Lyle Smith and Sheriff Ray Fietland had done some good things to deal with that. But we had a corrupt sheriff
Oh, yeah.
who appropriately went to federal prison, and he was an elected official.
Excuse
I
me.
came after,
Could I just ask the members of the audience, please refrain from interrupting during the presentations? Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
not even to cheer?
No cheering, no
Okay,
booing.
no cheering and none of the other things. I came after George Janovich. I was hired by Ray Fietland. Okay? But I encountered somebody who was appointed. His name was David Brain. I got the call when I was at the gym in Lakewood that he'd shot and killed his wife in front of his two kids in Gig Harbor. He was an appointed official. And we think appointed officials get screened very carefully and picked out very carefully. But it doesn't always happen that way. I was there when he was pronounced in the emergency room, and my faith practices usually have me praying over recently deceased people. There'd just been a handful of people that I had prayed over and wanted to punch out right afterwards. He was one of them. So you have two extreme examples there, one elected and one appointed. Neither approach is perfect. There's no foolproof backgrounding that can be done, unfortunately. Directly or indirectly, ultimately it falls to you as the citizens and the voters to make a decision, whether directly or indirectly, whether you elect someone who appoints or you, through the ballot box, appoint someone, vote for someone. There's another reason that I favor electing the position of sheriff. It involves some, if you will, check and balance on the person who would otherwise appoint the sheriff. Now, I've worked for 5 different law enforcement agencies. I was the police chief in Everett for 2 years. And that was the longest term under the mayor's only 4-year term that he served. He had a total of 5 police chiefs. I was his 4th police chief. And I was asked to do things I could not do because I thought they were wrong. Okay. There are consequences to being appointed that can really pull on you. If you have a young family, I had a young family. My son had just been involved in a serious traffic accident. But I had to say, sorry, can't stay. Can't do what is not an ethical thing to do. If you're an appointed sheriff, approaching authority doesn't mean that you'll do the wrong thing, but it's harder to resist. There are several options. Simply refuse and drop the subject, draw attention to the problem, report the boss to some outside authority. You want to mess with your career? That's one way to do it. Can be the right thing to do, but that's one way to do it. By contrast, if you're elected, you can simply refuse, either with some face-saving preface such as, I don't think you really want to ask me to do that, because when push comes to shove, you can be elected to elected and say, hi, you want to dance? Let's dance. As an elected prosecutor can do, as elected Superior Court judges can do. There's risks that go with the territory of serving as a government executive. There are risks associated with electing, but there are risks associated with appointing as well. You have a republic if you can keep it, if you can remain committed, if you can examine these issues and decide how much you want to invest and where you want to invest it in terms of selecting people who will behave ethically and honorably. You can ask them occasionally to account for their actions. All of it takes work. You have to know how the system's organized, and the system is fairly complex. You have to differentiate legal and responsible action versus the opposite. Sometimes you have to ask attorneys to help you sort those things out. Another historical figure besides Benjamin Franklin can be cited here, and it's Thomas Paine. He was a colonial-era freelance journalist. He was a pamphleteer, and he urged the colonies to throw off British rule. And here's what he said. He said, "Those who expect to reap the benefits of freedom must undergo the fatigue of supporting it." Echoes what Franklin said. He was issuing a crucial challenge to Americans then, valid now. If you want to have rights, you have to shoulder responsibilities. There's a responsibility, there's a difficulty, there's hard work at looking into the background of people that you would vote for. And you know what? That hard work is exactly what we need more of in America. A functioning republic requires time and talent and treasure. It involves attention and being invested. Want freedom? Good. Get ready for some responsibility. We have an approach sometimes to citizenship that we treat it like, Costco membership. Any of you Costco members here? I'm a Costco member. You know why you're a Costco member? Because you can get 400 cans of tuna fish shrimp wrapped together for 27 cents a can. You can't buy 5 cans, but you can get the big bunch wrapped together. Okay? And then you have to bother with the line and the other citizens, and that's a downer, right? But you can get it cheap. You don't have to invest that much effort. And besides, on Saturdays, people will feed you lunch from samples as you go through. Here is the problem. We confuse citizenship with consumerism. We don't just pay bills. We don't just pay taxes. We got to stand up, stretch, and get involved in more than that. It's complicated. Getting to the bottom of things means listening intently, weighing issues, deciding when things have a lack of fairness or legality. In a democratic republic, Public trust is essential, and among the most essential things that we do, I think, are providing public safety and public order. Now, not only providing public safety and public order, your prosecutor, your sheriff are people who are tasked with not only enforcing the law, they're tasked with doing it fairly and equitably and constitutionally. You know, the bad joke is, if you want to lower crime, you could drive through neighborhoods and just thump everybody you think might be a criminal. And sometimes, unfortunately, we've seen that happening, and it's wrong. The tough part is to both be effective in enforcing the law and to be fair and equitable and constitutional in enforcing the law. Err in either direction, and you will lose trust. And trust is the coin of the realm for law enforcement. But it's not just one-way trust. I need to trust you as a citizen. You need to trust me as somebody who's going to both enforce the law and treat people fairly. And you get to try to figure out who is the best person on the ballot to do that. Ain't easy. Ain't easy to do, ain't easy to judge. Welcome to the real world in America. Welcome to a challenge not to be a couch potato citizen. We need aerobic citizens, people who will take time, who will take the trouble, who will get themselves educated, and will make good choices. Ain't easy. A republic, if you can keep it. It is now 10 minutes from the end of my presentation. See, I'm behaving myself. And I understand that you may have some questions. Don't get me too much into history. I'm sometimes thought of as a history buff. Actually, that's the only time the word buff is used, usually in connection with me, but there you go. Questions? Madam Chair, are you?
I will call on people as they put their cards up. Am I seeing anyone? Commissioner Molesky. Oh, 1 second, tiny bit of housekeeping I want to get through your time. Clerk, can you please reflect that Commissioner Layton has joined us at approximately 6:05 and Commissioner Molesky joined us at approximately 6:10. So, Commissioner Molesky, you had a question for Chairperson?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
See
In a
you.
long time. One of the things, or one of the words that's always coming around here is called accountability. And through my research, I know that if an elected position did something that fits the threshold of either malfeasance, malpractice, or some type of violent crime, the voter can be able to recall an individual. To me, that practice is kind of long.
Oh, it is. It's not easy.
It's not
It's not
easy.
simple.
But the thing is, I think that, through digging around with that, is trying to find a way, if the person was elected, to still enforce some type of accountability. And I know can't be done at this level, but at the state level, do you feel that there's a possibility where we can relook that and go, maybe we should do an interim where there should be a suspension until that person is cleared, and if he is cleared, he could be reinstated, or if not cleared, relieved. I wanted to get your opinion on that.
And I had a handout. I don't know if you got the handout from State Sheriffs and Chiefs. Steve Strahan put together something. Microphone, thank you. A handout from State Sheriffs and Chiefs. They disagree with a piece of state legislation that was passed recently, and it was spearheaded by John Lovick, who is an incredible, neat person. I respect him tremendously. Worked with him in Snohomish County and like and respect that man. But I disagree with him on this issue. I think that state sheriffs and chiefs have a way to do that, to bring up the issue of there's a problem. And if the State Criminal Justice Training Commission, which is in charge of either endorsing the bona fides or non-endorsing the bona fides of an elected sheriff intervenes, that makes for an automatic recall by the suggestion that state sheriffs and chiefs have. The law that's passed sets them up to decide. So it's been foreshortened. I think it should be a little longer and more complicated, the sheriffs and chiefs way versus John's suggestion. But we have in front of us a law, and possibly even if it gets revised, a way that is not as complicated as it was. Did that help?
It does, so it takes a little bit more research and planning to be able to establish something like that.
And it should. We shouldn't be able on whim to remove somebody who stepped forward and gotten the majority of the votes. There are times when they may wish that were true, but it is not always true.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Come on, you're letting me off easy here.
Commissioner Consuela.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you so much, former Sheriff Pastor, for coming to speak to us. My question and something that I enjoyed hearing from you was that law should be, one second, where are my notes? Well, that the law should be followed equitably and fairly. And I feel like that applies to folks who are within an in-group, possibly those who know the law, those who may be citizens and not, possibly undocumented immigrants or recent immigrant and refugees. When you're not part of that in-group, how is that equity supposed to be enforced when there really is no voting necessity to really kind of have them in your forethought? If they don't vote for me, why should I care about them?
Well, there's something that we're ignoring a bit on the federal level here. And that is there's something called the courts. And Justice Felix Frankfurter, a little legal history here for you. Justice Felix Frankfurter, 40s and 50s on the bench, was a very interesting, sometimes liberal, sometimes conservative in his decisions. But what he said was this: the law is what the courts will do in fact. So what I'm saying is there is an arbiter here. And one of the arbiters is the courts. The courts tell us ultimately, is this legal? Is it not legal? Is it fair? Is it not fair? Here are the ramifications of not having it fair. So there's that. And there's also something else, and it goes to, and I know, sir, you listened to what I was saying because you repeated it right back. The people need to have their ears attuned as well and stand up and say, excuse me, we have an issue. Not everybody agreed with me in decisions I made when I was sheriff. There were people who stood up and said, excuse me, I think you're wrong there. And hopefully we were able to sit down and say, okay, let's talk about it. And there are some times I said, thank you, you've taught me something. And there's times when I said, excuse me, I think you're wrong. And where there is an arbiter, the law is what the courts will do in fact.
Commissioner Rydell Kelly, and then Commissioner Rohrer.
Yes, thank you so much, former Sheriff Pastor. I really appreciate your kind of rich and detailed understanding of history and orientation towards kind of us being a democratic republic and towards constitutionality, and especially your veneration of the voters as the kind of final arbiter and decider. And one thing that we've been wrestling with over the last several weeks in these meetings is that we've gone back and forth between an appointed and elected system a couple times now, and that the last time that decision was made was 20 years ago. And while I understand that you personally are advocating for an elected sheriff and completely, absolutely understandable in your position. We've heard from folks, that are young that weren't able to make that choice. That putting it to the voters and allowing voters to decide is indeed democratic, and that it's been 20 years, we can give them the choice and they can make the choice. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about allowing people to decide, even though you might have a strong orientation towards keeping an elected sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there is an advantage to that, to be sure. But one of the tricks in having an interested populace, an interested voting public, is to allow some consistency. Because if every other year we change how we're doing things, it complicates further the idea of how do we do business. So I can see an advantage in what you're saying, but I can also see disadvantages. What is it? It's July. Are we electing or appointing in August? There is some continuity that is good. There are some things you should expect of your sheriff or your police chief. You should expect your sheriff or your police chief to have a set of ethics and values. I think I got you a publication that myself, a few colleagues in the Bureau worked on, did 4 papers in all that we published. The idea that an ethical agency culture and time to build that is ultimately what you should aim for with public input in your law enforcement agencies. You should expect that from your law enforcement executive. And that doesn't come if you shift around too much. That doesn't see, I do see your idea of consulting the people, but I see some advantage in continuity and holding elected people to expectations to say, excuse me, how are you building, chief or sheriff, the ethical culture of your agency? Give me some examples.
Commissioner Roeder.
Thank you very much for your time and presentation tonight. A question, since you served for 20 plus years for Pierce County as our sheriff, and you served in elected and as an appointed role, was there one that you've seen where it seems where you were able to provide your best service to the community in terms of public service and leadership in serving in your role as sheriff? Or what challenges did you face in?
As you might imagine, the way I came to the conclusion that I favor elected was the way I could do it in what I thought was the right way or the best way. There were times, even with county executives I liked and respected, where I had to say, you may not realize what you're asking for. Luckily, I got to work with some who were quite understanding and open to that kind of thing. But I've worked for executives who would say, it's my way or the highway. And you can take your ethics and you can wad them up and I'll tell you where to put them. We need good, strong, publicly responsive law enforcement. And I think ultimately, I believe we get that with elected and people who are elected who actively go back out in the community and court input and make course corrections and look at what they're doing and question themselves. That's my story, LJ, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you.
So we're just about at time. We've got about 1 more minute yet. And Commissioner Molesky put her card up. However, she's already asked a question. So I'm going to defer to Commissioner Ginn, who has not.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Ginn, I'm curious, for an elected role that does not have a supervisor, like an appointed one, how do you suggest people meaningfully engage in holding their elected position accountable? What's the best way to do that?
I would say this is not unique to sheriffs. How do you hold your county executive responsible? How do you hold your prosecutor responsible? And it goes back to what I was saying about Benjamin Franklin. You listen, you get educated, you hear what's going on, you ask hard questions, as opposed to, let me find somebody to hold this person responsible. Let me defer that duty to somebody else. This ain't easy. This is hard stuff. And that's what Benjamin Franklin was talking about. And shame on us as citizens if we're not able to do the hard stuff and ask the hard questions and get more involved, as opposed to, yeah, whatever, they're out running the office and everything's okay. We need, as I say, more aerobic citizenship. And that's hard. I know that. I got family things I got to take care of. I got all sorts of things distracting me. But the quality of life, the issue of what is the proper role of civic culture is all of your business. And it's my business as well. I hope that was a decent answer.
So we're at a half hour, and thank you so much for speaking to us, and engaging us, and thank you for taking our questions.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Our next presenter is Pierce County Prosecutor Mary Robnett. And I will tell you the same thing, Prosecutor Robnett, that you have a half hour that includes questions, so we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me out tonight. I wanted to start by thanking all of you for this work that you're doing. I know that it's people pay a personal price, and it's an imposition to serve on a commission like this, but it's important work, and you're literally working on the sort of what I consider the Constitution of Pierce County, the Charter of Pierce County. So I appreciate very much what you're doing here tonight and every other night and time that you meet and discuss these issues. I did prepare a very short PowerPoint just to talk a little bit about what we do in our office and where I fit into the county charter and the way things are organized. So the first slide is, this is the statutory definition of prosecuting attorney. We are attorneys who are authorized by law to appear for and represent counties, county officials in any actions and proceedings. This means that I'm the legal advisor and representative for everybody who works in the county, all of the other elected officials at least, sometimes other employees. Next slide, please. This is the Pierce County Code, Article 410. The prosecuting attorney, it now reads, the prosecuting attorney shall be a nonpartisan office elected by the voters of Pierce County. I wanted to point out that when I ran for prosecuting attorney in 2018, it was a partisan office by definition. There was a Democrat holding office at that time, Mark Lindquist, and I thought the office should be nonpartisan. I'd been a deputy prosecutor for most of my adult career, and I felt very strongly that politics just shouldn't really enter into the business of what a prosecutor does. And I ran as a nonpartisan. I had my choice at that time. You could identify yourself any way you wanted on a ballot here in Washington, and I could be preferred Democrat Party, Republican Party, Independent Party, Moon Party. And I decided that I would identify myself as a nonpartisan candidate. And I won the election by a big margin. And I learned during that year that I was running for office that we all know how polarized party politics has become. But I realized during that race that the majority of voters aren't on the far left and they aren't on the far right, and they just want to elect people who want to put their nose down, and do the work without getting involved in politics. And that's what I very much tried to do since being elected. Now, I took office in 2019, and one of the first things I did was ask the county council to put it on the ballot, because in addition to this commission being able to put charter amendments on the ballot, the county council can do that too. And I asked the county council, put it on the ballot that my office, prosecutor, becomes nonpartisan. And didn't want to do it in 2019. There was no other election, and it would have been expensive, and it didn't make any sense. But the next time there was a general election, they agreed to put it on the ballot, and the voters of Pierce County voted overwhelmingly to make my office nonpartisan. So it is now literally a nonpartisan office. It's really important, what is put on the ballot for the voters to look at and how they're going to decide and weigh in on how to run this county and the charter. The next slide is full of data, tiny little print, but it outlines all of my statutory duties. And the ones that I think are really relevant: number one, to be legal advisor to the legislative authority of the county, that's the county council, and the executive in this charter county. Both the county council and county executive are part of the legislative authority. To be legal advisor to all county and precinct officers. So I am literally the legal advisor for every elected county official here in Pierce County. Number four is to prosecute all criminal and civil actions. That's what most people think of. And number 11 is to seek to reform and improve the administration of criminal justice. The next slide is just a statutory provision that I can appoint one or more deputies to help me in this job. They literally take an oath, we sign an oath, we file it with the county auditor, and then they are acting in my shoes. They are acting with the authority of the prosecutor. The next slide will be a little bit about my office. So, yeah, we have deputy prosecutors. We currently have a total of 288 full-time employees. Most of those are in the criminal division. That's the bulk of the work that we do. We also have 53 FTEs, full-time employees, in the civil division. We do family support. Those are people who, they don't work in our office. They do very confidential work, and they work off-site, but they establish parentage and do literally family support for families who need it, kids who need support from their parents. The next page is a list of our civil clients. So although the bulk of the work that we do is criminal prosecution, a huge part of my responsibility is being legal advisor and representing these clients. And it's literally every elected official and department head and agency that's part of Pierce County. By statute, I am their attorney and they are my client. It's not necessarily a relationship by choice. I've told some of them it's a relationship by statute. And so I'm the prosecuting attorney and I'm the attorney for these folks because I got elected to do that job. And I owe that to the voters. The next few slides are really about kind of a snapshot of a point where the criminal felony referrals that we do, these are full of data and they're kind of hard to look at. But if you look at the top row across the slide, those are the number of felony referrals that we've had for the last 5 years. And all of our criminal referrals come from law enforcement investigations. 100% of them come from law enforcement. So that's the number of referrals we get to review for felony charges annually. Below that are the number of cases that we file, or the referrals that we get for murder, manslaughter, robbery, assault. These are some of the types of crimes that we consider the most serious that we handle. And the second row there is the percentage of cases that we're handling that I would consider serious cases, violent crime cases, or cases with high potential for lethality. So you can see that the percentage of cases that we're handling that are very violent, serious, are increasing. That's of concern to me. This is the type of data that we're looking at constantly in my office to try to work with law enforcement and let citizens know kind of what's going on here in the county. That's a concern to me, that the number of serious violent felony cases seem to be increasing, at least in percentage of what we do. The rest of these slides you can look at. I think they're in your agenda. They really do kind of demonstrate the types of crimes that we're prosecuting: property crimes, ID theft, juvenile referrals. Juvenile crime is a huge concern to me. We're seeing more and more violent crimes committed by juveniles, more and more robbery assaults. If you look at if we can go a couple ahead. Is this juvenile referral? There's juvenile referrals. Robbery assault cases have gone from 87 5 years ago to almost double that today. That's very concerning. Firearm crimes, and these are firearm crimes, not a crime committed with a firearm. A lot of the robberies have a firearm involved. A lot of the assaults have a firearm and weapon involved, but firearm crimes, that's unlawful possession of a firearm. Most juveniles, it's unlawful in most cases for juveniles to have guns. Stolen firearms, those have gone, you can see, from 28 referrals 5 years ago to 126. So that's a huge concern for me as well. I don't have a lot of other information that I want to share tonight, but I'm certainly open for questions. I know your time is valuable. Paul Pastor is a tough act to follow. So there was a question over here I wanted to address about recall. And isn't there an easier way? There is a statutory provision, and I don't blame Sheriff Pastor for not knowing this off the top of his head, but Title 4212 is kind of a laundry list of how elected officials can be removed from office. And one of those, this is an automatic vacancy of office, is conviction of a felony or any offense involving violation of official oath. So there are means of, if an elected official is convicted of a felony, they're going to be removed from office. That doesn't necessarily go to a recall. I think that was the question. There are other statutory ways that create an automatic vacancy in an elected office, and one of them is a conviction for misfeasance or malfeasance.
Commissioner Layton and then Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you, Commissioner Lane. One of them is not registering a vote. Just looked it up.
Yeah.
So, thank you for.
Yeah, or moving away and changing your voter status. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a presentation. I had a quick, just a general understanding of the relationship between the prosecutor and the broader county government.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of, dictated by the state, right, to be there, but you're baked in as part of our county government, sort of like the superior courts.
Correct.
So how does your relationship with the county in terms of budget, staffing, and all that work out? Like, can you kind of just talk about how that process works, considering the county council has to approve that budget,
Mm-hmm.
and the executive branch or the executive kind of administers HR and
Mm-hmm.
buying paper and all that stuff? I'm just kind of curious of that kind of relationship and process as you've worked through your role as an executive of our county, but sort of by virtue of statute
Mm-hmm.
in the state.
Right. So this I don't want to tell you stuff you already know, but County Organization 101, the state legislature and state constitution give counties the authority to incorporate and become a county, and they're governed by legislation, statutes mostly, that govern how counties need to operate and run. There's an exception for counties who want to become home rule charter counties, and they form their own charter and have their own constitution. When the state legislature and at the statutory and constitutional level gave counties the authority to organize that way, they accepted prosecutors, Superior Court judges, and school superintendents, I think. 3 things. I'm pretty sure it's school superintendents. So I'm literally a state constitutional officer, and Superior Court judges are state constitutional judges, elected officials, and other elected officials in the county are charter elected officials. So did that answer your question?
It was more of like the process of your relationship in administering your office with the county in terms of you kind of have your budget is
Yep.
approved through the council, but you're a constitutional officer,
Yeah.
as you say. It's sort of a different than the assessor treasurer or
Yeah.
different than the auditor than it is your role.
Yeah. Well, I go in like every other elected official and I say, here's my budget, here are our needs. The executive makes a recommendation to the council approves the budget. I have to operate within my budget like anybody else. Does that
Yep.
answer it? Okay. I don't go to the legislature, I go to the county council.
I knew that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Commissioner O'Leary.
Thank you. On one of your slides, it showed that the family group that works on family issues.
Family support.
Family support, that was all grant funded.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that, why it's grant funded, and would you make a recommendation for a different kind of funding allocation?
I say it's grant funded because it's 100% reimbursed by the state. The state pays for support enforcement, but the work is all done through prosecutors' offices. So it's really reimbursed by the state. About 2/3 of that, maybe even 75%, comes from the federal government. And so, we've been edgy about that the last couple of years. Not sure if the funding's going to come through, and we've lost FTEs in that area and cut back the work that we're able to do, but we're still getting funding. So the grant funding might not be the best way to characterize it, but I think the way that we bill it and we're reimbursed it's not county money.
Thank you.
I guess I'll call on myself.
Okay.
I have sort of a follow-up question to Commissioner Layton. Just because we're trying to understand how all these puzzle pieces fit together and whether the charter is adequately speaking to where there might be gaps. And the question about going to the council for budget, despite or even though the prosecutor is a constitutional office, how does that concept play out in terms of things like HR, like the civil service rules, like procurement rules that would bind the county because they're in code and some of them emanate from charter, but any executive department in the county would have to abide by that. If they have personnel rules, same thing, if they're all codified. Does that kind of thing translate to your office, or is the constitutional nature of the prosecuting attorney remove it from those kinds of alignments, I guess?
Well, we do have our own HR. We rely on county HR for some things, and we're their legal advisor. They're our client. We do have our own HR department. County HR does some of our recruiting. The procurement rules apply to us. The civil service rules do not. The county charter civil service rules do not. I don't think they apply to the Superior Court either, or the Superior Court employees. But we do have our own HR. We have one person doing HR. We have almost 300 employees, so it just seems practical to have somebody in-house doing that. But, we give legal advice to the other HR, and we do, and all the procurement rules apply to us, contracting rules, et cetera.
Thank you, that's helpful. Commissioner O'Leary has his card up. He has gone once, so if there's anybody else that hasn't, we'll take them. Commissioner Surratt, then Commissioner O'Leary, unless somebody else jumps in.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Testing, can we hear? Thank you, personal information. Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Surratt, District 5. Thank you, Prosecuting Attorney Robin, for the presentation. You mentioned earlier the RCW related to deputies performing some of the roles of the office and exercising some of the authority of the office. But I imagine there have to be moments where a single individual has to accept the constitutional powers of the office. And so I'm curious, in moments of either an absence of the prosecuting attorney or a temporary capacitation or even a vacancy, who would occupy that role and how would we know?
Boy, that's a great question. We do have a continuity of operation plan in our office, and if I were incapacitated, our acting prosecuting attorney would be Corinne Schneff. She's our chief criminal deputy. She's here tonight in the front row. That's who it would be, and I think that it would be communicated to the county executive, and the county executive would disseminate that information as appropriate. Any other? Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Herrera, then O'Leary.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight. I have a question about the oath of office. You mentioned, I think you touched briefly on the oath of office, or maybe it was Mr. Pastor. Can you maybe just explain the importance of the oath of office and how that kind of binds you to you being elected, not particularly you, but just anybody on the being elected, how important that is to take an oath of office.
Well, it is important, and the oath is a written document that I have to sign, that any elected official has to sign. It's on file here, and it says the words, what you promise to do as an elected official. And I personally take it really seriously. I think all of our deputies take it very seriously too. We don't just sign a piece of paper and file it away. They stand in a place in front of their colleagues and say the words and take the oath. Violating an oath of office is grounds for a vacancy currently, without regard to the new statute that the sheriff was, Sheriff Pastor was referring to, the new, they're calling it the Sheriff's Qualification Bill. But the oath is very important, very significant.
Commissioner O'Leary, you're up.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Leary, District 1. Does your office have any direct interaction with the juvenile criminal system?
Yeah.
And how, can you give us any input on how you feel that part of our criminal justice system is functioning? And if you have any recommendations?
We do the criminal prosecution at Raymond Hall Juvenile Facility. Juvenile court is a really strange animal. It's a court that there are Superior Court judges who administer juvenile court. They're also in charge of the probation department there, the judges are, and the judges are also in charge of detention. It's a strange way to organize that type of court. And King County is a little different. King County, also a charter county, the judges have relinquished their authority over at least detention to the county executive. And maybe they have relinquished their authority over probation too, I'm not sure. But at least in King County, the judges are not in charge of detention. So it's an odd thing where the judges are literally kind of in charge of all these employees who report to the court and in charge of administering justice and making decisions as a judge in a criminal matter. So, yeah.
Commissioner Molesky and then Commissioner Strickland.
Thank you very much, Attorney Robinette. It was an awesome presentation. With your years of experience, and the reason why I brought this up because I used to volunteer for over 5 years at Purdy for the women veterans. But the one thing that I've learned that kind of bothers me a little bit, and I'm wondering if this might help improve the transition when people are leaving the prison system to be able to integrate better in the community. I know that with some, if they have a longer term of sentence, that they don't receive the same benefit for the shorter term, meaning that they can take college courses or prep them to transition out. I feel that that should be ongoing from the time that they start. Based on your experience, do you think that'd be really beneficial to maybe relook at those things to help people better integrate so they don't come out to be repeat offenders?
Yeah, I think anything that society can do to help people come out of prison and be productive instead of repeat offenders would be beneficial. Not really in my wheelhouse, but yeah, my opinion is anything DOC can do or society can do, or we as nonprofits and a community can do to make that transition better, safer, more productive is good. Yeah.
Commissioner Strickland.
Hi, Commissioner Strickland here. Thank you, actually. I think that you've done a great job in your position throughout the course of time since you've taken over. I would also just, like you mentioned that it's kind of a wonky system or a weird system having the way it's set up in Pierce County. Is there like an ideal system in your, in your own
You're talking
eyes?
about juvenile court?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I don't know what the ideal system is.
Sure. Just one more question. What do you think is driving the youth increase? And I don't know if you can answer that, but like the increase in crime. Like why are the kids doing more of this? So do you have insight on that?
I don't know. I mean, in 2020, possession of drugs basically became legal in Washington. About the same time, drugs became super cheap with the introduction of fentanyl. Overdose deaths went off the charts in Pierce County and around the state and around the country. About that same time, we had a lot of police reform, and police officers couldn't, detain people on Terry stop, we call them. 50 years of jurisprudence was thrown out, and it was outlawed to chase anybody in a car. And I mean, crime went way up everywhere in the state during that time frame. And those have been, gradually ratcheted back down a little bit, back down a little bit by the legislature, but it remains very challenging to do police work, especially in the juvenile realm. Police give adults Miranda warnings. You have the right to an attorney. Juveniles can't be questioned unless there's an attorney there. Police cannot question a juvenile unless there's an attorney there. And I think that's a for instance on what's happening with juvenile crime. I think juveniles feel emboldened. I think they feel like the police are restricted and restrained in what they can do, and they may not face, severe consequences if they do get in trouble. Right now, a juvenile, I showed you the possession of firearm stats. A juvenile does not get detention until their 5th conviction for possession of a firearm. I mean, think about that. because there's no more dangerous combination in my mind than impulsive, juvenile, impetuous. It's hard to learn to control our emotions as human beings, and you grow into an adult so that you can control fear and anger and all the other things that juveniles experience. But if you couple a juvenile mind with a firearm, in my mind it's very dangerous, but there aren't a lot of consequences. So I think it's a whole combination of things.
Okay, thank you very much.
yeah.
That's very insightful.
Commissioner Layton.
Thank you, Commissioner Layton here. Just kind of going back to the juvenile detention, from what I kind of heard your answer to Commissioner O'Leary is there's really no direct oversight from the county government other than the Superior Court over that facility, even though the county government pays 100% of that facility's costs. Is that kind of the way you kind of answered that question?
Yeah, so there is oversight from county government, but it comes from the Superior Court.
Right.
And the way it's organized right now, Superior Court judges rotate through that rotation out there. So there's, for the people working in detention, they have a new boss every year.
Right. And if I may, Madam Vice Chair, do you know of a system, or do you have an established system that if there is a case where a youth in detention is abused or molested, or there's some sort of improper action, what is the current process for that child to get services, some justice out of that, or heard? Do you know what that process is?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask that question, but
you're in front of us.
You probably know that Pierce County is facing an unprecedented civil liability for sexual abuse that has alleged to have occurred at Raymond Hall, our juvenile facility. The legislature lifted the statute of limitations on those civil claims, and we have been inundated. And they're not all BS, if you'll pardon my language. They're not, some of them are legit. And it's a serious concern. And the judges have recently done a little bit of a reorganization out there, which I'm hopeful will help. But right now, there should be a PREA investigation, Prison Rape Elimination Act, criminal type investigation if it's alleged to have happened in custody.
And that goes to this, sorry if I may. And
One last question, then
but does
Commissioner
that,
Herrera.
I mean, I guess I'm with the flow of that goes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're familiar with the flow of that I don't
All right.
know.
Yeah, I think the flow right now is that it stops with the Superior Court, with the elected judges who are in charge. I mean, the buck always stops with the elected official, in my book. Yeah.
Okay, people got a little in front of me with multiple questions, so I'm gonna, I appreciate everybody waiting their turn, and we're gonna close out with Commissioner Herrera, as nobody else has their card up.
Thank you. Okay, so you mentioned that you are basically the attorney for Pierce County employees, including all.
Well, I don't represent individual employees. I represent the county. The county is my client, but a lot of those I consider client constituents, other elected officials, yes.
Okay.
And sometimes we do defend employees in tort cases and that type of thing.
Okay.
But I can't give you legal advice. Okay.
That being said, we do have some conflict of interest in here. There's a lot of amendments regarding that. What is your opinion on a regular old Pierce County employee running for charter? And this is kind of a two-pronged question. Also, how in your years as being a deputy, obviously you've been an attorney for most of your life, would you say that there are family members, including across the board, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, cousins, best friends, being elected to executive positions and any type of position or appointed, it's pretty, I would safe to say it's pretty rampant. I mean, you can't know everybody's position, but have you seen that in your years as an attorney?
In my experience, there are lots of people who work for Pierce County who are related to each other. Is that your question? We have some in my office. I mean, we have husbands and wives in my office. I know there are lots of, we have people who are married to sheriff's deputies or judges, and Pat McCarthy used to be the executive. Her husband was a Superior Court judge, for instance. The issue of county employees running for charter commission, I know that came up prior to this commission convening, I think. I think, if county, I would like county employees to be able to serve on the commission personally. I think county employees are an invaluable source of information, and they obviously have a keen interest in the county and the running of the county. I think it would, I wouldn't be opposed to an amendment that says a county employee can be an elected commissioner, charter commissioner. There is a charter provision that says you can't be a county employee and an elected official, and I think that was the definition of elected official included charter commission members, I believe. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to an amendment to fix that, so county employees could be on the charter commission.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you very much to both of our speakers. As has been our practice around this time before public comment, we typically take a recess. So unless there's objection, I'm going to call a 10-minute recess. Be